We have a special treat for you today. Our guest is a poet, a musician, a soon-to-be fantastic dancer, and a totally talented guy. Please welcome Rick Park. Hello, Rick.
Hello, Rebecca.
It's really great to have you with us today. I'm so excited about having you share your talent with our audience.
You're too kind.
Well, I'm going to leave it up to you because you're the talent and you are who I want on this show. So I'm going to back off and leave it all to you, Rick. And this is absolutely fun.
I hope so. These are the blues. The idea of this piece, which won a blue ribbon at the county fair, Small Pond, and then was published in the Humboldt North Coast Journal. So I thought at that point the thing has a momentum and a life of its own. It deserves to be set to music. And because I'd had a little experience playing blues festivals and such, I wanted to make sort of a survey of the types of blues, and so these are the blues. When you tell yourself at work that you can make it until at least 5 o'clock before you pop that cork, but it's just too much, and so you hide it in your coffee cup. You know you got those low-down wino blues. Oh yes, you got them, those old low-down wino blues. And when you tell yourself you can make it all the way home without driving past her place again, but you just can't resist it, and there she is. She doesn't see you, but he does. You know you got those twisted romance blues. Oh yes, you got them, those old twisted romance blues. When you tell yourself that this old jalopy is going to get you all the way to the bank so you can cover all those checks, and so you hit that starter and you hit it again, and nothing happens but the breeze and the rain. You know you got those broke down rust bucket blues. And when you've been playing your heart out, see your promoter shaking his head, and you see all those empty chairs, and you know you blew those last few notes, and you see the doorman looking at his watch. You know you got those pink slip musician blues. Oh yes, you got them, those old pink slip musician blues. When the bright morning sun clashes with your pounding hangover, and you get the note your girlfriend left by the sink, and the one your landlord taped to the door, and your ex calls and says she had to worm the dog, and as far as she's concerned, it's her dog now. And the best you can do by way of a fresh start is to put on your last clean pair of skivvies, but you know you got those old lost karma blues. Oh yes, you got them, those old lost karma blues. This is called the Talkin' Cowboy Poet Blues, and it's a traditional format used by Peter, Paul, and Mary, made very famous by Woody Guthrie in the 30s. And I wrote it in a key about 2 steps higher because I wrote it about 30 years ago when my voice was higher. I was younger, prettier, whatever. But it's called The Talking Cowboy Poet Blues, and it kind of, I hope, sets the stage for the Cowboy Haiku Trilogy, which is a part of it. Well, I'm a cowboy poet from way out west, moseying scribe on a dusty quest, and I love to ride and roam and rhyme, yoodle and alliterate any old time. Yoodle-ee-hoo, riding bright in the saddle of my old horse metaphor. Yoodle-ee-hoo, on the banks of the Sacramento. Ooh-hoo-hoo. Like an old tree root down a sewer line, I was in this sleeping bag of mine, and I made my camp underneath the skies when suddenly, with wild surmise, I up and commenced to make my way down Balboa Street. Or was it Cortez? I was heading for that poetry reading. Well, I followed that wandering poetry star, found Francine at the local bar. She's got makeup just like Madonna. She says, maybe I don't wanna, but sometimes I get the urge to soak in detergent. And pierce my feet. Like a turkey on a rope, or a haiku by the Pope, up steps Harvey from Ukiah. He invokes the beat messiah on a grant from poets in the schools. His application was 48 cello-wrapped rolls of pink paper towels bound up in a jagged black ribbon. He called it self-portrait. I did not know where this might lead, but then it came my turn to read, and so I up and spilt a sonnet all about the bees here in my bonnet. It was my time to shine, like a phosphorescent bug in the cozy haunt of the night, gathering the nectar of old rhyme forms in order to lay the honey of lines into the hollow tree of your each and every individual mind. Well, it's hard to be a modern poet, of course, like getting on the freeway on a broke-down horse, and it's even harder out here in the West, but you know the lifestyle really seems the best. And besides, the money is so good. Folks, I got to ramble. I'm heading for that big post-modernist shootout up in Elko, Nevada. If you were curious, John Keats, the famous John Keats, wrote a poem containing one of the more famous mistakes in all of English literature when describing first looking into a copy of Homer by the translator Chapman. He felt, with wild surmise, like, he said, stout Balboa on a peak in Darien looking at the Atlantic and Pacific at the same time. That's a peak in Panama. But historically it was Cortez, not Balboa. So it's a very famous literary mistake, and that's what that line in that poem was about. Stacy 2. This poem is in honor of Stacy Ross, who was a poetry translator and a video producer from Portland, Oregon. Produced the first video I was ever on before this one. So this poem is in her honor. Stacy was not a funny girl. She laughed to keep from crying. She thought I was the funny one. Guess I wasn't funny enough. Her eyes crossed when she was amused, hazel strands playfully woven out of place in an otherwise perfect rug. Stacy was not fastidious, dust mice everywhere. Her shirts looked slept in. Her nature abhorred a vacuum. So, at the estate sale, hers was like new, and I brought it home, still in mint condition, with a slim volume of her Spanish translations. I have kept all of her attachments and call it Stacy 2. This is the Cowboy Haiku Trilogy. Cowboy Haiku number 1. Dusty spring morning, flies in my beer. Cowboy Haiku 2. A stirring in the loins? Nope, says Jed. Just them dry beans. Cowboy Haiku 3 came after I'd been to a reading where everybody was very conscious about their haiku having 17 syllables. No more, no less. Cowboy Haiku 3. I ain't done 17 syllables worth of nothing since I was born. The 3 cowboy poems and these 2 poems, which are short pieces but not haiku, they were published in this magazine called The Idiom out of New Jersey. And I was really thrilled about being published on that other coast. Anyhow, this one is from a different edition of The Idiom. It's called My Gal Susie. You know any people named Susie, by the way? Do you? Yeah. Almost everybody does. My gal Susie. I know a couple of gals named Susie. If one of them won't believe I wrote this poem for her, maybe the other one will. Susie, I've been true to you. I set my gold watch unwound to the moment you walked out on me, atop the mantel, and I never pass it without a sigh. This one kind of harkens back to the blues theme a little bit. Have you ever seen the movie Crossroads or heard about the legend of standing at the crossroads with an appointment with the devil? Robert Johnson's famous dilemma. This is called Still at the Crossroads. I made a bargain with the devil. Let me live to be 55, and I would have done all that I needed to do. I never even came close, dawdled and dallied, and still the devil has not come round for his pound of flesh. I'm still here at the crossroads. It's enough to make you lose faith in the bastard. I'm going to read 2 poems about cherry blossoms. This was also from the North Coast Journal, and it's very recent. It's less than a year old, because it was last spring. You know, cherry blossoms, spring. It's called First Cherry Blossoms. Yard sale. I pull to the curb, duck some low-hanging branches, and voila! Nearly poking me in the eye, the fatal sprig of pink. The usual reaction to beauty, a smile, thoughts of Japan in the spring, a haiku op. But now that I'm looking, just down the block, 2 more. They're everywhere. Where have I been? I resume my drive. The hospital is festooned. Oh well. Learn a new word, suddenly you hear it everywhere. And while I was thinking about what to do for Rebecca and this show, I realized that, not counting some doggerel from school days. First poem I ever published was in a little magazine which was probably read by me and the editors and nobody else, called Corban. And this is a page from that magazine. It's called Poem as Cherry and Sail, my first published real poem. Like cherries caught up on too high a branch, my poems hang in blueprint. But come love's wind to shake them down, I'll float you some poems, like a boy from his treehouse with little silken parachutes. And this language, our log boom, these lines, our cluttered flotilla, these words, boards, hammers, and nails, I'll knock you together some poems, and we'll go rafting, this one for a sail. I want to read a couple of poems from Toyon, the Humboldt State Literary Magazine. Well, to my surprise and delight, Toyon did publish a couple of poems so far, and I've submitted some more this year. And they're both true stories, both of these poems from the Toyon Literary Magazine. This one's called, I Never Told Her I Saw Her Naked. I never told her I saw her naked, the door just ajar as she was changing. Nary a whisper between us in that brilliant morning light, but oh, how she spoke to me. Where is she now? What is she wearing? Has she forgotten I was ever there? But oh, I was, right there. I see her still, awash in that slanting golden sunbeam, her tender pinks and whites. Students love that kind of thing. This one, also a true story, came a couple of years later. It's called Heron Stalking. And as you'll see, that title can be taken in two ways. I trail a great blue near the Golden Gate, south bank of the Polo Grounds, between the cyclodrome and the pony track. As I emerge from the tunnel, scarce 20 feet away, he is stalking the gopher holes, slowly undulating, burrow to burrow. Though wrapped, I go no nearer, but keep to a parallel for long minutes, imagining my own neck and beak lengthening, counterpoised over reedy legs like stilts. I wave, arabesque my body in tribute. Heron doesn't seem to mind. A bicycle passes below us. I give more room. Joggers pass above. I give yet more. The heron actually cleaves closer to me. Man paces heron like a mime. We speak in parallel hieroglyphics, a physical language, this heron and I. I am no longer heron stalking, but we are herons talking. He stops, cranes far forward, recoils, stabs, beak first at a gopher. No result. Together we pace another 50 yards. This takes long minutes, till finally it is I who tire. I climb upslope behind his back. Those massed gray tattered feathers, shaggy tendrils over a bullet-shaped body. Heron doesn't like it. 4 or 5 quick 3-toed steps and gone, not to be upstaged. Aloft, orange legs like contrails, he beats wings to the opposite bank. The flight, like an exclamation point. Conversation over. I'm going to attempt a couple of poems that are relatively new. They are currently unpublished. This one is called Bank Shots, and the original inspiration for this poem was pool. I love playing pool, and I understand the geometry of it. Sometimes Sometimes I don't have the physical skills to go exactly where I want to go with a shot, but I understand the geometry of it. And so this is called bank shots. Take a photo of the levee, a bank shot, if you will. See the waves crashing in and the wavelets reflecting outwards. At every point along the arc, angle of incidence equal to angle of reflection. And speaking of reflections, your morning face rebounding at you from the mirror, none too happily, or the blinding sun reflecting from oncoming windshields. These are perfect reflections, or near enough, as makes no difference. Then there are your billiards caroms, your basketball rebounds, and what hoopster has not knocked one in off the backboard. These are imperfect reflections, the softness of the ball or of the wall, a part of the calculation. And there are diffuse caroms, the echo of gunfire from marble walls, another kind of bank shot, or the spray of NASCAR parts, or of suicides pounding down cliff walls, or even smooth stones skipping over the lake, or, metaphorically, me bouncing back from another fall in a ricochet romance. Or, last but yet noteworthy, the caged teller taking a sip from her silver flask just before closing time. You guessed it. This piece was published in the North Coast Journal about 3 months ago. And for my pains in getting it published, I received several harassment calls, I presume from people that took a different view. It's called God Getting Old. Like me. God Getting Old. Just for practice, I created another planet. It took me a week, and it was still unmanned. And now I'm stiff and sore all over. Went to cancel it, but couldn't remember where I put it. And now it'll probably run into one of the other ones. So I went to check out Earth. It had been a while. My God, it was overgrown. And all the non-believers, more sodomy than it's Sodom. I went to wash it clean, but they said, I promise not to do that again. Now, when did I do that? I told the Pope, never mind the be fruitful and multiply. He said, it'll never fly at the synod, but to check him out next visit. I smote him down, but in an eye blink, there was white smoke and another in his place. I took a chariot out of there. Halfway to heaven, I realized the turn signal was still on. Hard to relax, maybe a little nap. But here are all the original Hell's Angels running across the lawn. Now where did I put that brimstone? I've been very privileged to have now published 10 poems in the North Coast Journal. My hope was that after 10 poems they would have me bronzed. But anyhow, this was the 10th one, and it was just about 2 issues ago, that issue of the journal. And it's called Humboldt Tango. So if you see a little bit of dancing feet superimposed over this, it's Rebecca and me showing what we know. This is called Humboldt Tango. Antediluvian high heels, attitude lofted to the level of art, a glint of steel in an embrace, James Dean gone gaucho, silver bells at the brim of my black hat, a leg flicks past mine, gliding over hardwood. Alright, in your late-breaking poetry news, as we're making this film, this is the brand new North Coast Journal, and once more they've honored me by publishing a poem of mine. This poem is called Erato, and I did something I rarely do, which is to use the title as the first line of the poem. Erato was the daughter of the Greek goddess Mnemosyne. She was the muse of lyric poetry. So I invoke her frequently, but this is the first time I've done so in print by name. Erato, flute in hand, poring over her shelves, seeking something diaphanous in an outfit. Here's the cry of a blocked poet, racing to the paper-strewn study on wings of thought. She diagnoses instantly, comma, not semicolon, and departs, still sans outfit, a fleeting vision. And there is heard her faint elegiac toot of farewell. So that just about concludes my history as a poet, musician. I'll conclude the show with thanks to Rebecca for putting me up to this. I'll conclude with a little poem called Down, which actually got a blue ribbon at the county fair. You know, that's the sort of thing that keeps me going. It's what I live for. Down. Down ain't nothing. Don't mean squat. Down's gonna slide on by.
Thanks, Rick. That was really great. You really are a talented guy.
My pleasure, thank you.
Great to have local Humboldt County here. Really splendid. Thanks again, Rick.
My pleasure.